Hello guys, we are back with our next lecture. In this lecture, let us go through the next topic. Okay, so in this lecture, we will be discussing about the concept of a processes program, and we will also discuss a PCB and processor states, guys. So these are the three topics which we are going to discuss in this particular lecture, guys. So these topics are really interesting and they are even easy also, guys. Okay, so first of all, let us understand what is the difference between program and process, guys. Okay, so in simple words, program is nothing but watch what we write, guys. So in our C labs, in our Java labs, and everywhere we write some programs, right? Yes, so those are called as a programs. Okay, and then what is a process? So once you press the execute button for this particular program, it is going to be converted into a process, guys. Got it? Yes, a program which is a running or which is executing is called as a process, guys. That's the simplest definition of a process. Got it? Yes. So a process is a program in execution, right? Yes. So what is a program then? Program is nothing but a collection or a set of instructions written to complete a particular task or a particular job, right? Yes. So a program is not a process by default. Got it? Yes. So why it is not a process? Because it is not running, right? Yes. So while you are writing a program, it will not run, right? So once the program is done completely, you will click the run button, right? Yes. So a program is a passive entity. So passive here means it says that it is not active, whereas a process is active entity. Okay. That is a file containing a list of instructions stored in the disk, that is a secondary memory called executable file. That's it. So it is not executing, right? So that is the reason why it is called as a program. Got it? Yes. So a program becomes a process when an executable file is loaded into the main memory and when its PCB is created. Guys, don't think too much about PCB. So PCB is nothing but process control block, guys. So once you execute a program, once you click that execute button or once you click that run button for this particular program, a particular block will be created which is called as a process control block. Okay, so that is what it is saying, guys. So once it is created, you can say that that particular thing is a process from now on. Got it? Yes. So I'll be explaining you in detail about what are the fields and all those things about PCB in this lecture only. So don't worry. Okay. Yes. So let us continue. So a process, on the other hand, is an active entity which requires resources like main memory, CPU, time registers, system buses, etc. So process is nothing but what, guys? It is active entity. So it needs multiple things. Okay. Yes. So now moving on. So what does a process contain, guys? So why does it need memory? Okay, so process, in simple words, these are the four different components inside a process, guys. So this is one of the most commonly seen diagram whenever you are studying operating system. Like in the first week, the faculty will be showing you this diagram and explaining you this diagram, right? When you are doing operating system, any kind of course, right? Yes. So a process consists of, so basically these are the four different fields of process, guys. So we are having a text, we are having a data, we are having a heap, we are having a stack. So text is nothing but this is the place where I write my code. So basically in my program I wrote a code, right? So that code will be stored here, guys. Okay, so now moving on to data. So in my program, I might have defined some values like pi is equals to 3.14 in that way. So those global values or all those values will be coming under data, guys. Okay. So above these two, we will be going to have heap. Okay. So heap is nothing but here inside a heap, we are going to store the dynamically allocated data. So the data which was created using malloc, calloc. So any kind of dynamic allocation method, if we have used in our program, so all that data will be coming into this heap, guys. Okay, and when it comes to stack, so whatever function calls are going on, whatever function data is there, what are the function parameters, all those things will be coming into the stack. So in this way the data will be stored, and here the code is fixed, right? In runtime the code will not update, and similarly with the data also. So as it stores the data about global variables, will the global variables be created in the program, guys? No, right? Yes. So the only scope will be if there are any dynamic variables, At this time there are only 3 dynamic variables. After 1 hour there are 100 dynamic variables. Similarly with the stack, so now only 3 function calls have been done. After 1 hour 100 function calls have been done. So that is the reason why stack can go from in this way, like from top to bottom, and this heap will grow from bottom to up. So up to some point wherever they can meet, until there they can grow. So that is this is the whole structure of a particular process, guys. Got it? Yes. So now you are getting the idea, right? So how exactly this process will be stored? Okay, so the exact same definitions I have written and the main keywords have been underlined. Okay, yes. So now moving on, the most important thing that you should understand is, so assume that in my system I opened 2 applications, guys, but the 2 applications are the same applications. I opened Chrome 2 times and I opened YouTube in both of them. Okay, so at that time what is the thing with respect to these 2 guys? So these 2 guys are having the same text data as well as text as well as data, right? Because they are the same company or same browsers. So I am using Chrome browser for both of them or Brave browser for both of them. So at that time both of them are going to have the same code or the same text and data, but they could have potentially different heap and stack, right? Yes. Because if I open this particular thing and this particular thing, if I start comparing, in this recommendation I got a video and in that recommendation there is some other video. So in that way the recommendations and all those things could be different, right? Yes. So that is the reason why the other parts might be different, and these 2 applications are treated as 2 different processes, guys. Remember that. Okay, so each and everything will be treated as different things. Okay, yes. So that's what it is written here clearly. So every 2 processes, even 2 processes may be associated with the same program. They will be considered as 2 separate executable sequences. Got it? Yes. So if a user has invoked many copies of web browser program, each copy will be treated as its a separate own process. Got it? Yes. So if you recall, I used a terminology called as a PCB, right? Yes. So what is PCB? Let us discuss now. So PCB, the full form is nothing but process control block. So now your question will be, okay, so we understood the full form now. So what exactly is it going to store? So exactly what is going to be stored by the process control block is, it is going to store about the process, guys. So now process is nothing but a program in running case, right? So now program, if it is running, it is going to have some properties, right? So while it is running, it might give outputs, it might open some files, it might close some files, it might update some files, it might be in some particular state. So in that way there will be multiple properties with respect to this process, right? Yes. So all that information will be stored by this process control block. So basically in simple words you can say that it is going to store the metadata, guys. So this PCB is going to store the data about that particular process. Got it? Yes. So now your question will be, okay, so if it is going to store the data, what data it can store? So these are some, I'm not saying these are all, these are some fields which are available in the PCB, guys. So the first state is a process state, process number, process count, registers, memory management, list of open files, accounting, scheduling, input output status. So now let us discuss one line definition for each one of them, guys, like what it is going to store. That's it. Okay, so first let us go to the introduction of PCB. So a process control block is created for every process. So basically every process which is active will have PCB, guys. That's it. So if you are calling a particular program as a process, it should have PCB. That's it. There is no more words, right? Yes. So which stores information about the process. Okay, so it is called task control block. So in some books it is also called as a task control block or process control block. So in both of these names are interchangeably used. Okay, yes. So let us continue. So the next thing is, each process is represented in operating system by process control block. Okay, so in operating system how it is going to show? So in this way. Okay, yes. So first let us start. So the first block is process state. Okay, guys, I did not discuss the process state diagram. I'll be discussing it once discussing this part. So I'll be discussing this, guys. So this is a state chart diagram, guys. So the diagram will look in this way. Don't get scared, I'll be explaining you everything clearly, guys. Okay, yes. So the information about the processor. So basically a particular process can be in any one of these 6 states, guys. So there are total 5 different states in this process state diagram. So a processor can be in any one of them at any moment of time. So that data, like now it is in which state, so that data will be stored in this process state. So it indicates the processor in which state the process is currently in. So it might be in a new state, a ready state, a wait state, running state, a terminated state. Got it? Yes. So now moving on, the second thing is a processor ID or processor number, guys. So each and every processor will be given a unique number to be identified, guys. So basically it is like your college roll number, so it will always be unique, right? So it will not even match with your previous batch student, because they will integrate year somewhere, so 17 batch, 18 batch, like that, right? Yes. So that is, so in the same way this process ID will also be unique, and each and every processor will be given its own processor ID, which is always unique. Okay, and similarly moving on to the next thing, that is a program counter. Okay, so I think I wrote it in the wrong way. So here it is not process, guys, it is a program counter. Okay, so what is a program counter, guys? Okay, so to be clear, program counter is a topic or a concept with respect to computers, guys. So inside computers we are going to have this program counter. So what exactly this program counter does is, so assume that you are running a code. Okay, so now this code is having 30 lines, assume in that way, guys. So now you are running line number 2. Okay, so while running line number 2, the next line which you are running, so that line number will be stored here. So when you are running line number 2, this program counter is going to store the address of line number 3, and it will say that I am ready to give you the address once your current execution is done. So once this execution is done, you will ask the program counter to give the new address, and you will start executing from there, and this program counter will again increment, guys. So this is the concept of program counter. So it stores or the counter which contains the address of the next instruction that is to be executed by the process. Got it? Yes. So similarly moving on, the next is a registers, guys. So basically if you are running a particular process or a program, it will need some registers, right? So if I am adding 2 numbers, I need at least 1 or 2 registers, right? So those all things will be stored here. So it is going to say R1 and R2 is being used by this processor. So in that way. Similarly moving on, the next sector is a memory management, guys. Okay, so when it comes to memory management, there are various types of memory management, like which type is being used, what is used, so those sizes, all those things will be mentioned in this memory management. Okay, similarly moving on to list of open files, the name only says. So basically if your particular program is showing some particular image, it is able to download some particular file, hence these 2 files should be open somewhere, right? Yes, so those kind of opened files will be shown here. Similarly accounting, so accounting is like how finance people will be accounting based on their money things. So here the accounting will be done based on the hardware thing, guys. So basically this CPU is used for this much time by that processor, this thing is used by that much time, this I am using, this is being used. So in that way the CPU utilization, the execution time, so these kind of things will be made as an account sheet and it will be checked. Okay, similarly the next thing is a scheduling, guys. So scheduling is nothing but which process is having priorities. So basically priority is nothing but, so if there are 10 processes, so among them which you will give the first chance, so that is having the highest priority. So it is nothing but the priority number will be there, and based on that you will give the priority. Okay, yes. So now moving on to the next thing, that is input output status. So basically whether the input output devices are connected, not connected, disconnected, so those kind of things will be stored. So basically what is the final conclusion here, guys? So what is a PCB storing? PCB is storing nothing but the information about the process, right? Yes, got it? Yes. So now moving on to processor states. So basically there are 5 different states, and I will be explaining you within 2 minutes, guys. So it's that much easy. Okay, so these are the 5 different states, guys. Okay, so let me take a pen cap or something. Okay, so just give me a second. Okay, yes, so let us observe. So basically once a process has been created, so it will be created in new state, guys. So let me name the states first. So new state, ready state, running state, waiting state, terminated state. So these are the 5 different states, guys. So there are some more big diagrams, but this is the basic diagram, and most of the time the questions will be asked from this diagram only. Okay, yes. So once a process has been started and it converted into process, from new it will be admitted into ready, guys. So once it is creating, it will be in new state. So once the creation everything is done, it will move to ready state, which says that he is ready for execution, he or she is ready for execution. So if the CPU, so assume this running state as CPU, guys. So if CPU is 100% free, this guy will be coming here and he will start his execution. Okay, and once his whole execution is done, So running means it is executing. Ready means he is waiting for the CPU. So once his whole execution is done, he will move to terminated state where his work is done and he is ready to leave, right? Yes. And there is one more state here, waiting. Okay, so assume that one more processor came. So let us assume a few more processes so that the interaction for you will be clear, right? Yes. So assume that this is a one more processor and this is a one process. So assume that these two guys created at the same time, and this blue guy came first to ready state and this guy came later on. So this guy got the first chance to go to running. Okay, so now this guy is running. Okay, so this guy is executing some statements where this guy is waiting for this guy to complete. Okay, so assume that this guy got a work now, that is he need to print a particular page of data. So what he should do, he should not do that printing in this particular CPU, right? So he should not stay in the CPU and print things, right? He will come to waiting state. So basically he needs to do some other task, right, other than this. So what he will do, he will come to this waiting state. Okay, so once he comes to this waiting state, so this CPU is idle now. So basically now this process will be coming here, and this process will be executing the program, and this guy will be printing that particular page. So I told you he want to print some data, right? So he will start printing the data and he will print the data. So once that printing is done, he will come back to ready state, and now he will wait for this guy to complete, and this guy is continuing, and assume that this guy's work is done. So he will go back to terminated state. So in this way the process will continue, guys. So I think everyone now got a clear idea, right? So new state means he has been created newly, right? Yes. So new means a process has been created. Running means the process is being executed. Waiting means it is waiting for some IO operation. I told printer, right? So printer is an input output operation. Similarly, ready means he is waiting for the CPU or the processor, right? Yes. Terminated means his complete tasks are done. Got it? Yes. So this is a simple state diagram, and there are some terminologies with respect to this, guys. So once a process is moving from new to ready state, means he is being admitted, guys. So he is coming from a new state to the ready state to wait, right? Yes. So that is called as a admitted state. Okay. So now moving on from ready, if someone is going to running state, so that thing will be taken care by scheduled dispatcher, guys. Okay. Guys, I'll be discussing about that in our next lecture, so don't worry. So he is the one who will take care. So basically if there are two processes here, so who should go into running state? So that will be taken care by this dispatcher only. Got it? Yes. So now assume in this way. So assume that now this from this running state, you are having some input output operation, or there is a particular event wait. So what you will do? You will come to the waiting state, right? Yes. Okay, so at that time you will be completing your particular task from here, and once the IO or event task has been completed, you will leave the state. Got it? Yes. So in this way it will work. So now everyone is clear with this path, right? Yes. So now let us discuss about the other path. So assume that this process got a chance, it came here, and now a new process has been started, which is the system shutdown, guys. So basically system shutdown or power cut, assume in that way. So basically if it happens, everything will be turned off directly, right? Yes. So basically if the system shutdown starts, so once it is coming to ready state, it is emergency shutdown, assume in that way. So at that time you will start closing all the applications, right? Yes. So what exactly happens is, so as this application is running, so indirectly we call it as an interrupt, guys. So basically we are forcing this brown application to forcefully come out of the CPU, right? I am forcing that application to close. So indirectly once I force it, so we call it as interrupt, and it will come here, and this guy will be given a chance, and he will turn off the system, and he will go out, and everything will be removed off, right? Yes, I am talking with respect to shutdown, right? So that's the reason why I removed everything, right? Yes. So that is interrupt, guys. Got it? You are understanding the definitions, right? Yes. So these are some terminologies you can say, right? Yes. So now let us go through some standard question which was asked few times in our gate, guys. Okay. Yes. So the question is the minimum and maximum number of items in ready, running, and block. Okay. So in any moment of time, is there any condition that in a ready state there should be any number of items, guys? Please understand. So let me take a piece of paper, or so I'll be explaining for this question. Let us explain here only. So assume that there are two processes here. Okay, so if this process is in a ready state, new state, it will move to ready state, and from ready it will move to running and will run, right? Yes. So is there any minimum condition in ready state, right, guys? Like one process should be there, that's it, should be there, that's it. No, right? So there could be any number of process. So that is the reason why the minimum count there is a 0. Okay, similarly moving on to running state. So is there any condition that at least one process should be running? No, right? Because assume that there is only one process which came, which started executing, and suddenly it wanted some IO operation, so it went here. So at this moment of time there is no one in running state, right? Because there is no one waiting here, right? Yes. So with that understanding you can say that the minimum number of items in run state will also be 0, right? Yes. And now when it comes to blocked state, blocked is nothing but waiting state. So assume that a process came and it is executing continuously and it went off. So at that time the count at a waiting state will minimum will be 0, right? Yes. Okay. So now moving on to maximum. Okay, so when it comes to maximum, so in a ready state, at max how many members will be there, guys? So assume that I am taking care with respect to 2 members. Okay, so if you observe carefully, when there are 2 people here, how can the CPU be idle, guys? It cannot be idle, right? Because CPU should always run. If there is any at least one guy here, so that guy should be here. So indirectly, if there are 100 guys here, one guy will be going here. So at the end 99 guys will be here. So indirectly, if there are n guys, n minus 1 will be there in the ready state and 1 will be executing. So that is the reason why the ready state maximum is n minus 1, and in running state there can never be 2 processes, guys. Only one process will be there. So that is the reason why 1 will be in the running state. And what about block state? So assume that this guy told that he want to print something, he will wait here. And assume that this guy came here and he started executing. After some execution, he also remembered that he also should print something, so he will also come here. So there is no restriction here, right? So there could be 100 processes. So that is the reason why n will be the processes. Got it? Yes. So it's a quite interesting and easy question, right? Yes. So now moving on, the same question, assume that they asked when there are p CPUs and n processors, guys. Okay, so they are saying now here we are having only a single processor, right? So that is the reason why here we can run only one process at a time. But when it comes to when they told that there are p processors, p CPUs and n processors, so if there are p CPUs, I can run p processors at any moment of time, right? Yes, and the minimum will be the same 0 0 0. And when it comes to ready, okay, so if there are 2 processors here, so at this time if there are 2 items here, so these 2 items will mandatorily go here, right? Yes. So if there is a third item, so just give me a second, I'll be opening some other pens. Okay, so this is the third color, right? Yes. So if this guy comes, he should wait, right? Yes. So indirectly, how many they are waiting? So if there are n p processors here, so if there are n processes waiting, so n minus p will be ready and p will be in running state, right? Yes. So with that understanding, you can say n minus p will be in ready state, right? Yes. Okay, and p will be in running state. Similarly, blocked state. So every one of them could be in blocked state. There is no restriction. So n will be in the blocked state. Got it? Yes. So I understand that few students might be getting some basic confusions with respect to this, but try to analyze on your own once again, guys. You will get a clear idea on this. Okay? Yes. So now I hope everyone got a clear idea with respect to this concept of a process, program, PCB, and process state, right? Yes. Okay, yes. So I hope everyone got a clear idea with respect to these 3 concepts. So in the next lecture, let us discuss about process scheduling, guys. Okay, so in that lecture, I'll be discussing about dispatcher and all those things. So don't worry, guys. Okay, yes. So basically here, so why we are discussing this topic is, so here everything can be managed automatically, but there is one particular thing which we need to do something, right? So when it comes to admission, so once a process is ready, you will admit it, there's no issue. But when it comes to ready to running state, so if there are 3 different processors, I need to do something, right? So I need to write an algorithm or I need to write something so that one of them will be selected based on something, right? So based on their time, based on their something, it will be selected and it will be given a chance. So that is what the scheduling is. So that is what we call it as the scheduling. Got it? Yes. So that is what we'll be discussing in the next lecture, like on what basis we can do, and after that we'll be discussing what are the different methods which can be applied to do this particular transfer from ready to running state. Got it? Yes. So now I hope everyone got a clear idea with respect to this. So in the next lecture, let us start the discussion about process scheduling. Okay? Yes. So let us meet in the next lecture. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Like, share and subscribe for more awesome videos like this. Thank you.